Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're tackling a massive question. Why do successful people treat rejection like data, not defeat? To wrap our heads around this, I want you to visualize a stickman animation with me. Just picture this simple little stick figure holding a huge, towering stack of papers. And on every single page, stamped in bold, glaring red ink, is the word rejected. Now, normally, you'd expect this figure to be in tears, right? Tearing their hair out or maybe just chucking the whole pile in the trash. But instead, this figure is callingly flipping through them, almost like a scientist reviewing a stack of lab notes. There are no tears, there's no anger, there is just pure, unadulterated focus. Okay, let's dive into this. For most people, rejection is like undeniable proof that they just aren't good enough to achieve their dreams. But if you look closely at the most successful people in the world, across literally any industry, whether it's business, art, or science, you're going to find this fascinating, almost paradoxical reality. They don't just tolerate rejection, they actively harvest it. They've been rejected way more than anyone else. So we have to ask the central mystery here. If they get rejected the most, why didn't the no stop them? What secret do they know that the rest of the world doesn't? Well, let's start with section 1, the rejection reflex, and how we shrink from the no. All right. Imagine our figure from the animation again, but this time, let's say they receive just one single piece of paper with that red rejected stamp. Instantly, they collapse. They physically shrink down, getting smaller and smaller until they just totally give up and slowly walk away from their goal. And honestly, this is the common, visceral, almost automatic reaction most of us have to hearing the word no. But why does that happen? Because we frame rejection as a final verdict on our personal worth. For most of us, hearing no feels incredibly intimate and deeply personal. It's a full-body cringe, kind of like that awful sinking feeling when you accidentally send a spicy text complaining about someone directly to that exact person. Yikes. It feels like a heavy gavel coming down in a courtroom, declaring once and for all that we lack talent, intelligence, or value. Because it hurts so much and because it feels so startlingly final, people simply quit before they even truly get started. That brings us to section 2. The paradigm shift, reframing the no. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can completely flip that perspective. I want you to imagine holding a giant magnifying glass over that same rejected paper. If you look really closely at the fine print under the glass, that stamp doesn't actually say, "You're terrible." Instead, it has these tiny, incredibly useful notes written in the margins. Notes like, "wrong timing," "wrong audience," or "needs improvement." Suddenly, it's not an insult, right? It's an instruction manual. This completely redefines the word. Rejection is not a personal verdict on your worth. It is vital feedback on your timing, your audience, or your execution. This is the great pivot from emotion to logic. It tells you exactly what didn't work this specific time, not what you are permanently capable of achieving overall. It's objective, useful information. Let's explore how this works in practice in section 3, the mechanics of success or the experiment mentality. So, think back to our incredibly calm stick figure from the very beginning. They aren't throwing those rejected papers in the trash. They are meticulously sorting them into a box clearly labeled Lessons Learned. They aren't wallowing, they are keeping the process moving. Let's walk through this mechanical process together because it is exactly what high achievers do. Step 1, you receive the no. Step 2, you extract the data and the lessons, completely stripping away the emotion. And step 3, you adjust your next attempt based on that exact data. Successful individuals treat every single no as just one solitary data point in an ongoing experiment. Think of Thomas Edison viewing thousands of failed light bulb materials not as failures, but as absolutely necessary data points. If an experiment fails, a scientist doesn't cry and quit their profession. They just tweak the variables and run the test again. Next up is section 4, the invisible price, focusing on the compound effect of persistence. This reveals the hidden reality behind pretty much every massive achievement you see in the media. Picture a long, seemingly endless row of red rejected stamps, trailing all the way back to the horizon, leading up to one single glowing accepted stamp at the very end. The truth is, every overnight success story hides a towering pile of rejections that the public just never sees. Let's emphasize the simple math of this persistence here. 1 versus 10. It's a stark, undeniable contrast. The person who collapses after just one rejection goes home completely empty-handed. But the person who pushes through 10 rejections, they are now 10 times smarter about what doesn't work. They've gathered 10 times more data to fuel their next attempt. And this brilliantly illustrates the two distinct paths we can take. On one side, you have most people. They get one rejection, take it deeply personally, and walk away forever. But on the other side, you have successful people. They get 10 rejections, adjust their approach 10 times, and finally reach that glowing yes. I absolutely love this because the dividing line between these two outcomes isn't innate talent, and it definitely isn't genius. It is quite simply a measure of courage and data collection. It's about how many no's they are willing to bravely walk through.
Finally, we reach Section 5, the twist, finding the hidden stepping stones.
Imagine our figure looking back at that incredibly tall stack of painful, old, rejected papers. Right before their eyes, the papers quietly transform. They harden and lock together, actually turning into the very stone steps that the figure is now standing upon to reach their ultimate, towering goal. As the paper hardens into stone, I want you to remember this quote. Every rejection you're afraid of is actually a stepping stone. You just can't see it until you're standing on top of it. I really want to let that sink in for a moment. Those rejections you are terrified of, they were never the opposite of your success. They were the required price of admission to elevate you to exactly where you want to be. Knowing this, picture our stickman animation one last time. They're picking up a fresh, completely blank sheet of paper. They are totally unbothered by the past, fully energized and ready to try again. Why? Because they have a new internal script. When the no comes, don't ask, what's wrong with me? That's the old way. Instead, do ask, what does this tell me? And do ask, what's my next move? This is the actionable, practical mindset shift that you can take right into your very next attempt. So, that brings me to a question for all of you. What is a rejection that ended up teaching you something incredibly valuable? Think about a time a closed door practically forced you to find a better, wider open window. I want you to drop your story in the comments below. I'd genuinely love to read them and see how you've turned your own data into your greatest victories. Thank you so much for learning with me today. Keep experimenting, and I will see you in the next explainer.